Oh my God, these things are getting harder and harder. As we move forward, I was buying more and more albums because I had more and more money. I was working and I had more and more money. And it got kind of crazy. I have so many from this year. I had like over probably close to a dozen, if not more, runners up. And I had to choose what ones were on the top. This year was special because February was the darkest month ever for me because of the loss of Karen Carpenter. I loved the woman to death, loved the voice, and it put me a new cycle, as it were. I started listening for voices, trying to replace that voice that I'd lost. I've been attuned to voices ever since, and I always was, but never as much as this year. This year, the voices drew me in, and 90% of them I really got to love because of the voices. I turned 20 this year, and my perspectives continue to change. The year was 1983. I'm TC Kirkham. This is Vinyl Recall. Welcome to Vinyl Recall, y'all. I'm TC Kirkham, TKR Video Central and the Kirkham Report, and we are up to 1983 and the top favorite albums of that year. This year was killer for me. I had so many albums that I had purchased that year. It was hard for me to pick everything below the top three. And the top three were always going to be the top three. But, although 3 and 4 were close too. But it was hard for me. As I said, I was working. I had more money, more disposable income coming in. And I was trying to find everything that I wanted to hear. And I would tend to buy the albums more than the 45s at this point, although I still bought my share of 45s. And this year was just nuts. So I'll run down some of the runners-up after we get through the top 10. But this was a hard year, really hard year. And so thank you to Vinyl Richie for coming up with this format, and I'm trying to follow along with it on my own little feature here. So let's go through my 10 favorite albums from 1983. Number 10, this is the original pressing of this, before when they still had the UK attached to their name. And you can say what you want to say about the original one. Nobody really found this album until after the second album came out, when they hit it huge. But it's a top-notch album, dance album. It's got some great stuff on it. Some people don't like it. They think it's a little rough compared to the later albums and even the later stuff done by George, but I love it, and I always will. And I didn't find it either until Make It Big came out. But I love it all the same. Number 10, Fantastic by Wham. At the time, they were known as Wham UK. There was an American band with the same name. This is just a terrific album all the way around. Bad Boys, A Ray of Sunshine, Love Machine, Wham Rap, Enjoy What You Do, Club Tropicana, Nothing Looks the Same in the Light, Come On, and Young Guns, Go For It. They had several hits in England from this album. Wham Rap was a big hit over there. I always loved it too. Love their cover of Love Machine from the Miracles. Really fantastic. This came plain with just lyrics, and of course in the States it was issued on Columbia, which was George's label later too. People discount Andrew's songwriting, and they of course decided to take Andrew Ridgely's out of the equation as a songwriter voluntarily. Andrew felt that George was a better songwriter, and so George wrote most of their stuff. But he did contribute to couple of the songs on this album, Club Tropicana, Young Guns. Really good stuff. And I mean, they deserved... Andrew deserves better than he gets. I liked his solo CD from 1990, too. He was better than people gave him credit for. Fantastic album. All the way around. Number 10, Wham! And fantastic. How appropriate. Number 9 is going to be controversial because some people really hate this album. I am not one of those people. I know it's also controversial because it caused the breakup of the band, which was just killer to me. But it was also an innovative idea. Nobody had done this quite this way at this time. There have been other concept albums throughout the years. They had another concept album. But this one was realized in a big way because of the power of MTV. Now, I wish everybody had been on the same page, because I still can't believe this hasn't been turned into a Broadway show. I mean, it should be. Tommy was huge, and they've had all these jukebox musicals. Stage this properly, it would be phenomenally good. But there's quite a few people that don't like this album, and 2 of them are members of the band, and I really think I really think you guys are not being fair. I really do, because this is some of the best work you guys ever did. Number 9, Kilroy was here from Styx. Tommy Shaw and JY, James Young, were not fans of this album. They very rarely play stuff from this album. This was Dennis DeYoung's baby all the way around. Of course, Dennis was the star. He was Kilroy. Shaw was Jonathan Chance, and JY was Dr. Everett Righteous, the guy leading the Moral Majority parody here. But it was, and the thing is, it predated the Parents Music Resource Center by 3 or 4 years, and that's the kind of crap that they were trying to pull. They thankfully did not get that far. Mr. Roboto, Cold War, Don't Let It End, High Time, Heavy Metal Poisoning, Just Get Through the Night, Double Life, Haven't We Been Here Before, and Don't Let It End reprise. I think you could throw in a few more Styx songs and turn this into a successful Styx Broadway musical. Of course, they did have the custom album label. Dennis was Kilroy, the rocker that was imprisoned. You can say what you want to say about this, and I know it has a gatefold of sorts in the lyrics and the storyline. I know Tommy and JY like more of the rock stuff, and Dennis was more of the Broadway style. But they did both well here. Tommy's Haven't We Been Here Before, which was released as a single without any benefit of a video from the video that they had made for their concert tour, is a great song. All of it's great, and I think people deserve to give it a better look. Unfortunately, this was the point where Styx decided to call it quits. They did one more album, Caught in the Act. It was a live act with one new song called Music Time, which barely hit the top 40. And then they disappeared until Edge of the Century in 1991. And Tommy was not a part of that at the time. He was doing too well with Damn Yankees. Still, great album. Everybody who doesn't like it, they have their reasons, and I'm not going to deny that. For me, it's one of their best. Kilroy was here from Styx, number 9. Number 8. I still don't know how I feel about what happened to this woman. By the time she was 30, she attempted suicide because she thought she had done it all and there was nowhere else to go. With a voice like this, that shouldn't have happened. People should not have been taking advantage of her. And they did. And it's terrible. She is still one of the greatest female vocalists of all time. And she was 22 when this album came out, I believe. And already a Tony winner. And an amazing debut it was for her. I don't understand why more people don't love what she does, because I think her albums, I rarely see anybody who talk about this kind of music, or R&B, or pop, talk about her. And that's a shame. Man, that woman has one of the most powerful voices in history. And for the last 20 years or so, she's kind of only been on the fringes of the industry, and that's just a crime. Her 1983 debut set the hairs on the back of my neck on edge, and still does to this day. Number 8, Feel My Love from Jennifer Holliday. This woman is one of the greatest singers of all time, and she so got the shaft. She had 3 of 4 albums that came out on Geffen, which dumped her because they weren't selling. I still don't understand that. Just Let Me Wait, I Am Ready Now, This Game of Love, I'm Never Coming Down, I Am Love, Shine a Light, Just for a While, My Sweet Delight, Change Is Gonna Come, and This Day. She has done, produced by Maurice White from Earth, Wind and Fire. She still does some gospel stuff, and has done some gospel stuff over the years, and she's magnificent at it. Why didn't she become the musical diva superstar she deserved to be, just like her character from Dreamgirls? Although maybe not kind of out there that way, but the talent was there. The drive was there. She should have been bigger than she ever was. She deserved better and still does. Jennifer Holliday, number 8, Feel My Soul. Love this album. If you've never heard her stuff, listen to it. I mentioned this a couple weeks ago because I put the album on the wrong year. The first album. I was under the impression it came out in November of 1981. I was wrong. It came out in January of 82, but I counted it as 81. So deal. It's a single. The single was out in 81. The second album came out in 83. I checked it this time, made sure. And it is a terrific album also. And this is another person who never seemed to really get the full credit they deserved for what they released. They had one big hit and a couple of other minor hits on MTV, but nothing on radio. Rock radio played one song off this that I remember. There could have been 3 or 4 hits, and it's a shame that it didn't do better than that. And it did hit my chart because I loved it. Number 7 for 1983, Subject by Aldo Nova. Excuse me. Aldo Nova, just a marvelous artist, and very often does not get the due he deserves. Subject's theme, Armageddon, Race Cars, Armageddon, Monkey on Your Back, that was the hit single. Africa, Primal Love, Hold Back the Night, another single. Cry Baby Cry, Hey Operator, War Suite, Prelude to Paradise, Paradise, Victim of a Broken Heart, Always Be Mine, and All Night Long. Victim of a Broken Heart is one of the greatest rock power ballads of all time. I don't understand why it didn't seem to do anything. Lyric sleeve, photo. Aldo was at the time on Portrait Records, subsidiary of CBS Columbia. I forgot to show Jennifer's, but hers was Geffen. Maybe some of the rockers here, the rock fans here in the vinyl community, can explain to me why they don't like Aldo Nova or why they never talk about him. I mean, this guy is one of the best guitar players I've ever seen. And I've talked a lot about my guitar stuff lately. He just doesn't seem to get the credit he deserves, and his voice is so unique. Jennifer Holliday, again, the voice. Dennis DeYoung, the voice. George Michael, the voice. The voices are what really pull this out and pull it through. Aldo has this very raspy, wonderfully raspy voice that is perfect for what he does. This album deserved better attention. Subject, Aldo Nova, number 7 for 1983. Number 6, again, the first thing that caught me was his voice. I was a fan. I have the first 4 albums, I think. 2 on album, 2 on CD. And I also went back and got his earlier stuff. If you're in Britain, you may remember him as the lead singer of a band called the Q-Tips in early 1980s, late 70s. He was fantastic, but I hadn't heard of him until this album came out. And he became the first person I ever bought a major poster for. Usually I'd get posters out of magazines, or when I bought posters, it was usually, scantily clad women like Charlene Tilton and Linda Carter and Cheryl Ladd and Lonnie Anderson. I didn't have any interest in rockers. I bought a poster for this guy. I love this voice. Love this album. This album, in many ways, it's equal to, maybe slightly superior than the second album, which had his biggest hits on it. But, I mean, there's a lot of covers on here, and his voice is perfect for that. Track listing is a little bit different in England than it is here in the UK and in the US. But it's a great album all the way around. Number 6 for 1983, Paul Young and No Parlay. I love this album. Come Back and Stay, Love Will Tear Us Apart, Whenever I Lay My Hat, That's My Home. Phenomenally good version of that. Cuckoo Cucurama, No Parlay, Love of the Common People, Oh Women, Iron Out the Rough Spots, Broken Man, Tender Trap, and Sex, another artist on Columbia. This album is phenomenally good. And I'm just sitting here thinking about an album I missed from 1982. I'm really upset now. This album is Paul's close to best. Secret Association from 1985 is excellent as well. Probably will make my top 10. We'll find out when we get there. But I love his cover of Marvin Gaye's Whenever I Lay My Hat, That's My Home. Come Back and Stay, awesome. Love of the Common People, awesome. The album track's awesome. Album is awesome. Number 6, No Parlay from Paul Young, 1983. Now, you're going to laugh at this one, but I'm going to explain something to you. This is not the same artist that he became later. When he started, he was a rocker all the way. He had a couple of rock bands in the 70s. In the 80s, he transitioned to solo stuff. Eventually dropped a letter from his last name. And came up with some terrific stuff. Now, everybody that's used to the later stuff from the late 80s and throughout the 90s, and even beyond that, probably, I will bet that the ladies that loved him in the 1990s didn't even know this first album existed. This is not his first album. This is his first Columbia album. And it is, I got terrible reviews, which I don't understand, because to me, it's a fantastic, the vocal is awesome, the guitar work, phenomenal, the keyboard work is unparalleled on any other pop metal record. I wish he got more attention to this album and its follow-up, which were more rock, than he did when he came in the 1990s, when he became more or less a mid-tempo crooner. Granted, it served him well, very well. The man became a superstar in the 90s because of that. But he deserved it before it, and he deserved it for this album. Number 5 from 1983, the self-titled Columbia debut from Michael Bolton. This is not Michael Bolton Said I Loved You, But I Lied, Michael Bolton. This is not When a Man Loves a Woman, Michael Bolton. This is hard-driving, hard-rocking Michael Bolton. If you've never heard this, and you haven't even heard the singles, which were Fool's Game and Fighting for My Life, Fool's Game is a masterpiece of a single. Never understood why it peaked, I think it peaked at number 80 something on the Hot 100. Oh my God, with that keyboard? Are you kidding? This album is Bolton's best, bar none. I love the guy, even in his later days, in the persona that the Columbus Dispatch once called, the Columbus, Ohio Dispatch, the newspaper, once called the highest paid karaoke singer in the world. That was not very fair. This is the album that made me a Michael Bolton fan for life. Yes, when he changed styles, changed direction, he ended up kind of a cross between a harder-edged Barry Manilow and maybe a softer-edged Kiss. I don't know. He had that voice. Fool's Game, she did the same thing. Hometown Hero, Can't Hold On, Can't Let Go, Fighting for My Life, Paradise, Back in My Arms Again, Carrie, and I Almost Believed You. The second album, Everybody's Crazy, which I don't think I have anymore. I had it, but I can't find it on vinyl. I may have had the CD, but I can't find that either. Are rockers. He didn't really transition until Soul Provider came out. And the man's work here is brilliant. Columbia. The critics can go screw themselves. I'm sorry. This is a great album. If you like pop metal, which I do, this is, I'm sorry. I love Michael in his peak period. Say I Love You But I Lied, Steel Bars. I love all those songs. I love the album of arias he did after working with Luciano Pavarotti. And I loved the song he did for last year's American Song Contest, Beautiful World. Should have been a bigger hit. This album tops them all. And Fool's Game is still my all-time favorite Michael Bolton single. Michael Bolton by Michael Bolton, number 5 on my 1983 list. 3 and 4, very tight. They're both from members of the new British invasion that started occurring because of MTV. They both have great vocalists on lead. They both have interesting stuff in their mixes on their albums. Number 4 got number 4 because a couple of their songs are just nonsense. I love them, don't get me wrong. And the lead singer has the best hair in 1980s ever. I wanted that hair after Too Shy came out. Number 4, Kajagoogoo and White Feathers, led by singer Lamal. Too Shy, White Feathers, Lies and Promises, Magician Man, Kajagoogoo, which is an instrumental, Ooh to Be Ah, Hang On Now, This Car Is Fast, Ergonomics, and Freo. The tracks are in a different order on the UK release. Lamal, who doesn't love that hair? Look at that hair, that two-toned spiky hair. Love that. Lamal, real name Christopher Hamill, has one of the best vocal voices. Yeah, you get vocals from voices. One of the best voices ever. I have loved his voice since day one. Too Shy, big hit for them, and Ooh to Be Ah was a bigger hit in Europe. Here's the sleeve with lyrics and name of the band, which Kim says sounds like a baby disease, by the way. There's the label. They were on EMI, America. But the lyrics were not always... Freo is kind of out there. Hang On Now is a good song. Ergonomics is a little out there. Lamal's solo stuff was stellar. And you'll be seeing probably both of the albums when we get to those years. I think the band obviously made a huge mistake when they listened to their manager and canned Lamal as lead singer. For some reason, the manager had it in him to pit him against the band, and they finally patched things up on Bands Reunited in 2009, and they've done stuff together off and on since. But Lamal's voice is incredible. And anyone who says otherwise, I will challenge you because I love it. Number 4, White Feathers from Kajagoogoo. Number 3, again, the album is different. Now, thank goodness, I don't know why this always happened in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and into the 80s. Why the UK pressings and Japanese pressings always had different tracks than the American ones did. It doesn't make any sense to me, and now that there's a world release date, they don't do that anymore. Which, to me, is good. They left 2 songs off this album, which both popped up on the flip sides of the 2 singles from it. And some people get kind of creeped out by the first song, even though it's a Burt Bacharach song. It was written by Burt Bacharach, originally recorded, if I'm not mistaken, by Dionne Warwick in the 1960s. And this whole album is excellent, and these 2 guys put together some magic when they were doing it, and it's fabulous. Number 3 for 1983, Naked Eyes. In the UK, it's called Burning Bridges. Here, it's just Naked Eyes. Always Something There to Remind Me, Fortune and Fame, When the Lights Go Out, Voices in My Head, Low Life, Promises, Promises, I Could Show You How, Emotion in Motion, Burning Bridges, and Could Be. Back in the 80s, when I was making my own tapes of stuff to take with me with my Walkman, Naked Eyes and Kajagoogoo were on the same tape back to back. Played those all the time. This is just great stuff. This was the first album I ever got a poly sleeve for. It's EMI America again. They were also label mates, which is kind of crazy. Pete Byrne, Rob Fisher, terrific here. The Always Something There to Remind Me video creeps some people out, but I love what they did to the song. I mean, it's so, you hear it very succinctly syncopated in the 60s version. There's a great version by Carpenter's in the Bacharach David medley on the album Carpenter's, the Tan album. This completely turns it on its head for the 80s, and it's magnificent, and this whole album is really good synth pop. Naked Eyes, aka Burning Bridges. The 2 songs from Burning Bridges that were not included in the American release of the album are on the flip sides of Always Something There to Remind Me and Promises, Promises. So you can still get them. Okay, number 2. This album ranks not just in my top 10 of 83, but it very likely would be ranked in my top 5 of all time. I came very close to putting it at number 1 here, but I really couldn't because of who is number 1. This album, I loved. I talked about another album in 1979 by this band, and I said my favorite album was coming up by them. This is it. They were transitioning, doing different types of music. When they had, this is a band who went through, I don't know how many phases, a vocal group actually, that went through so many phases over the years. Every album changed style. And when they started, they were a nostalgia act with doing songs that if it wasn't from the 40s, 30s, 40s, or 50s, it sounded like it was. By the time they got to 1979's Extensions, they had become a full-fledged jazz pop ensemble. Here, they take it and twist it a little further and go more for the pop vein and the AC vein, and the result is the best album they've ever put out. Number 2, Manhattan Transfer, Bodies and Souls. This album includes their top 40 hit Spice of Life, which barely hit the top 40 for some reason. It got tons of airplay in Columbus, Ohio, where I was. It also hit the R&B chart, which they'd never done before. Also, This Independence, American Pop, Mystery, Soldier of Fortune, Code of Ethics, Malaise and Malaysia, Down South Camp Meetin', Why Not, Goodbye Love, and The Night That Monk Returned to Heaven. The B-side is more of their traditional sound. The A-side, 100% 1983 pop. And it is phenomenal. Mystery. Mystery it would rank in my top 20 songs of all time. This song, written by Rod Temperton, best known for a number of Michael Jackson's hits, including Thriller, and also as a member of Heatwave, the writer of Groove Line and most of their big hits. Rod Temperton wrote Mystery. This song is a masterpiece no matter who does it. Now, I love Manhattan Transfer's version. Anita Baker did it a couple years later, and her version blew me away too. The song is just phenomenally written. Mystery would have been a Eurovision winner had it been a Eurovision's entry. It is that good. Everything on this album is top notch. This Independence has a dance beat to it, but it's a very pop song with jazzy vocals, which they are wont to do on practically everything they do. American pop also, they maintain that specific, that wonderful Manhattan Transfer vibe that they have on every album, while still conforming to what they're doing. In this case, it was the pop and the nostalgia sounds separated. If you only could own one Manhattan Transfer album, this is the one I would recommend. I love Extensions, which has Birdland on it, and that's quite possibly my second favorite song by them. But this album is phenomenal. Manhattan Transfer, Bodies and Souls, number 2 for 1983. Number 1, you guys already know what it's going to be. This album propelled them from rising stars to true superstardom. They have maintained that superstar level ever since. Really, when it comes to the length of popularity that they've had, they were the first band of the 80s, where their primary work was in the 80s, to have the same kind of longevity that the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, the Kinks, the Who have had. If you go into the 70s, you would also throw Kansas and Journey into that mix. These guys, I mean, yes, I admit, I do like the first album better than the second album. I've said that, but the third album, what else? Pyromania from Def Leppard, number 1 from 1983. This album gave them legs, and they've kept running ever since. They continue to do well. The new album just came out, as a matter of fact, and you'll be seeing it soon, because I totally forgot to show it this last weekend. Rock Till You Drop, Photograph, Stage Fright, Too Late for Love, Die Hard, The Hunter, Foolin', Rock of Ages, Action Not Words, Coming Under Fire, and Billy's Got a Gun. They still play 80% of these songs in concert. And Photograph, Foolin', Rock of Ages, 3 classic Def Leppard hits. Polysleeve, later label. This is an album to be loved. Now, is it my favorite Def Leppard album? If you've seen my influencers on them, you know it's not. Adrenalize is my favorite album. This is third behind Adrenalize and Hysteria, but I'll tell you something. At the time, this was my favorite album by them. And it is still in the top 3. Well, maybe. It's still in the top 5. And it's still excellent music. I mean, this was a changeover for them. This was Phil's first album with the band. Pete Lillis had been asked to leave. And it's fantastic. And I mean, this is hard driving metal with a pop bent. And I have no idea what just happened with my camera or why it happened. Oh, what? Gee, Merry Christmas. All right. Sorry, I don't know what just happened with my camera. It did the flip horizontally thing off. This album, let's just say it that way, this album is phenomenally good. We'll just leave it at that. Number one for 1983, Def Leppard and Pyromania. Recapping, hopefully without any more camera problems. Number 10, Fantastic by Wham/UK. Number 9, Kilroy Was Here by Styx. Number 8, Feel My Soul by Jennifer Holliday. Number 7, Subject, Aldo Nova. Number 6, No Parlay by Paul Young. Number 5, Michael Bolton's debut solo album on Columbia, his Columbia debut. He had a Michael Bulletin album out before that. Number 4, White Feathers by Kajagoogoo. Number 3, Naked Eyes, a.k.a. Burning Bridges in the UK, by Naked Eyes. Bodies and Souls by Manhattan Transfer in the runner-up slot, and Pyromania by Def Leppard. Now, this is what I left off this list. This killed me. 16 by Stacey Lattisaw. Frontiers by Journey. Candy Girl, New Edition. Faster Than the Speed of Night, Bonnie Tyler. The Flashdance soundtrack. Cargo by Men at Work. Synchronicity by The Police. Let's Dance by David Bowie. Can't Slow Down by Lionel Richie. What a Feelin' by Irene Cara. And 4 or 5 other ones. All of these. What the hell? 1984 is going to be harder. 84, 85, 86. These are the years, along with 83, that I bought a lot of albums. I've already looked at the list. 84 is killing me. And I want to mention, because I didn't bring it up in the 1982 show, and I should have. I can't believe I forgot it, and because it is one of my favorite albums from that year. But in the 1982 show, I would have dropped Dawn Patrol by Night Ranger and replaced it with Over the Line by Greg Guidry, which I loved. If you ever have a chance to check it out, Greg is not with us. He died in a fire back in the late 90s or early 2000s. Phenomenally good songwriter, and I really loved that album he put out. Greg Guidry, Guidry. Check it out if you don't know him. And I just wanted to bring that up. In any case, some of 84, I mean, I was looking at my list for 84 as I was getting ready for this, and I don't have everything that I put on this, and I'm having trouble deciding what does go on here and whether or not to include soundtracks. My rule of thumb is, if the soundtrack is not a monster album, Saturday Night Fever, Grease, Star Wars, I don't include it. I didn't include Star Trek. I think I did include Star Trek the motion picture. Did I not in '79? Because I'm trying to do mostly pop and rock, and I don't really want to do soundtracks. But no, I did not include Star Trek, even though I did mention that it's my favorite score of all time, or one of them. So it's going to be hard, because when we get to 84, I really started buying a lot of soundtracks too. So from 84 on, soundtracks are probably going to show up. And my tastes are changing. The voices that I found in 1983 were amazing. I knew several of them already, but, you know, out of this list, I knew Joe. I knew everybody from Manhattan Transfer. Rob Fisher was new from Naked Eyes. Lamal from Kajagoogoo. Michael Bolton was new to me. Paul Young was new to me. I knew Aldo. Jennifer was new to me on record, but I knew her from Dreamgirls. Dennis DeYoung, always phenomenal. And George Michael. I mean, wow. 84, I don't think anybody's going to have trouble figuring out what my top one could be, but I'm not sure if I have it on vinyl. I know I have the CD. I'm not sure if I have it on vinyl. So then I may have to do some adjusting. But it'll be coming up in a week, and we'll have lots of fun with it. So stick around with me as we continue to go through the 80s, and TC reaches legal age in 21 at 1984, and Big Brother will be watching. If you've already subscribed to my channel, thank you. And if you haven't, please do. I would really appreciate it. It helps my numbers with YouTube. And don't forget to leave a big thumbs up. Don't forget to share. Don't forget to share with what I put up with, this has just been a crazy show, with your social medias. and get it out there to the interwebs so everybody can check it out. And also, please leave a comment, because I love talking to you. I love hearing the feedback, especially on this show. And I really am looking forward to hearing what you have about some of these, and it'll be fun. I'll have another year to look back to on next week's edition of Vinyl Recall. Until then, I'm TC Kirkham, TKR Video Central, and the Kirkham Report. Ciao, baby!